On today's World Insights, the new development bank seeks to expand beyond the original BRICS members. How can this development bank make a difference in the post-pandemic recovery?
So all of the multilaterals now are looking for new ways to do more with what they have.
And amazing athleticism, fluid effortless movements, and iron discipline. The stuff of Winter Olympic dreams, something a Chinese Olympian skater has shown on the ice, who's now training the next generation.
Figure skating, not only technical, you have like artistic, you have to combine like everything together, and that is a real performance.
Here is our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. This year marks the 6th anniversary of the Shanghai-based New Development Bank. Since 2015, the lender has thrown a lifeline to BRICS member states and other nations in dire need. A few days ago, New Development Bank announced it would issue 3-year bonds worth $2.25 billion to raise funds for aid amid the pandemic. How well has the New Development Bank carried out its mission to help economies in distress and shore up global cooperation? I talked to Leslie Mastorp, the Vice President of New Development Bank. Congratulations, 6th year anniversary for the New Development Bank. You started from day one.
It's a huge moment, if you like, because one does reminisce when you hit a target like this. So I do still remember with vivid memories the moment arriving in Shanghai, meeting new friends, establishing the office with this huge expectation of building obviously a new global multilateral institution. At that stage it seemed like a very distant dream because we were a startup in every respect with no staff, no infrastructure.
No chair, no table. I remember you were telling me about buying the chair, what type to choose.
Today the bank has over 200 full-time employees. We have just closed $30 billion of loans, approved loans for infrastructure projects. We've established a huge green and sustainable footprint with our activities, so there's quite a lot to celebrate.
From 0 to 1, now to $30 billion. $30 billion.
That is
it's
correct.
Amazing. So where are you from 1 to 100 in this period of time?
I think the bank is still very much an infant, if you like. Our peers, the World Bank, Asia Development Bank, Africa Development Bank, European Investment Bank, these institutions are all either 70 or 60 or 50 years old. So the bank is still very young and very new. However, we have significant milestones now that we can celebrate. But like our peers, there are common challenges that we all face now. As you know, as a result of COVID-19, most governments today are fiscally constrained. So they are not able to borrow as much as they could in the past because of the lack of fiscal space. So all of the multilaterals now are looking for new ways to do more with what they have, meaning to stretch the balance sheets, to find ways to expand the lending headroom. So we want to, for example, lend more to the private sector and mobilize more private sector funding. Secondly, in our case, we will also now expand the bank beyond just the BRICS countries. What that will do is it will help us to bring in fresh capital because new countries will come in, inject new capital into the bank, and that will enable us to lend more to these countries.
A lot of interesting development, but how would you make sure, Leslie, with limited resources, I mean, at this moment, right? Everybody is having limited resources because of pandemic and the economic recovery, to not spread around too much, but really focus, stay with uniqueness.
I think the bank will always have certain unique and distinctive characteristics. The first one is the sustainable and green footprint, right? From day one, as I mentioned to you before, the bank had a mandate to be green. In 2016, you will recall, Tianwei, in April 2016, we announced our first projects. All 5 of those projects were renewable energy, green projects. And we continued on this path with the overwhelming majority of our approved infrastructure projects in the green and sustainable space. So we won't just finance general infrastructure, just continue to build roads and dams and power and ports. We will specialize in infrastructure projects that helps with the green transition.
True, true. But now if you look at China's goal, just as one of those emerging economies that the BRICS Bank could cover, 2030, 2060, ambitious goals. So enormous amount of financial support needed. But at the same time, how to balance the economy with the carbon goals, that's another thing too. So how do you as a development bank look at these issues of your member economies?
We see that as our central mandate. In fact, because of the 2060 and 2050 net zero target of all of our economies, the bank's mandate will shift, I would say, quite significantly over the next number of years. In fact, I would predict that multilateral banks in general will move away from traditional infrastructure to almost do everything in the sustainable and green space, because we've got a role to play to, if you like, help shape market outcomes, help drive the rest of the financial sector towards green and sustainable outcomes. As a bank, as you know, multilateral banks, the global public goods or fighting climate change is part of our core mandate, right? Obviously, it matters for us to be profitable, to be commercially viable, but our core mandate is a developmental one. So because of this target in China for 2030 peak emissions, very ambitious, as you correctly point out, but we see our role as enabling, as supporting the government's mission to achieve those targets.
But different governments are having different timetables. Some are looking at 2050, others looking at 2060. Emerging economies, they have very different development stage. It is still climate change, common but differentiated responsibilities. So as a bank serving mainly emerging economies, how are you looking at the timetable and say, here's what we are going to do?
You are absolutely correct. Firstly, as you said, these are very ambitious targets. China's 2060 target might seem 10 years later than the 2050. The more important starting point is that China is a very carbon-intensive economy. Yes. It's the second largest economy in the world, but it's got the biggest carbon footprint. So 28% of all global emissions in the world, that's almost a third, right? Almost a third comes from China. So China has the bigger task, if you like. I would say the 2030 target is the even more ambitious one, because in less than 10 years, the challenge now is to significantly reorient almost every sector of the economy, from energy to logistics to packaging to smart mobility. We literally will have to look at new smart and sustainable cities. But the good news is that over the last decade, China has been the fastest in reducing the carbon intensity of its economy, and therefore there is hope and belief that it is feasible to achieve the peak emissions by 2030.
Mm-hmm. And of course, during this process, there's a lot of restructuring of the economy, that's for sure. But of course, there's a much more complicated issue than we earlier pledged during the Paris Agreement, because there's more geopolitics, there's more uncertainties of recovery due to the pandemic. So Leslie, from your bank's perspective, how do you see these uncertainties while you have to make a daily decision about how to make sure the carbon print will be improved?
That's a very good question, and will take me a lot. It's a huge question, but I think the first point to make is that what the pandemic has reinforced is the idea that these global challenges like climate change, like migration, cybersecurity, global pandemics, all of these challenges can only be solved if the world works together in a coordinated, multilateral fashion. These problems you can't solve in one country alone. The first point, though, is to deepen and strengthen multilateralism. Our institutions will have an even bigger role to play going forward, to play a role as a catalyst to sort of drive market outcomes towards these bigger public policy objectives. But every day we've got to make decisions in terms of the appropriate balance. The other point I'd like to just highlight is that the pandemic has also revealed a lot of the global inequality that still persists throughout the world.
Indeed.
And we cannot continue with globalization without addressing the issue around the inclusivity of economic growth. Look at income distribution patterns. There's a lot of pockets of social instability that we have seen evidence of throughout the world. We cannot lose sight of those challenges.
There is an opportunity, but also a challenge right now with the carbon factor being emphasized, for example, by trade policies, by taxes, by cross-border interactions, that there will be new winners and new losers.
Yeah.
As the New Development Bank, one of the things you focus on is to try to bring common development to your member countries and even more that are trying to join you. So how do you make sure this process will not be another winner-take-all process, Leslie?
I think that is at the heart of our mission. At the moment, as you know, we are a BRICS bank. We are only focusing our lending activities in Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Very soon, though, the bank will be announcing the expansion of the bank into a much bigger global enterprise. So we will have countries joining from other emerging markets. We will also have non-borrowing members join the institution. So we will become a global institution with a strong emerging markets
This is breaking
focus.
news, almost, what you have just told me.
It is quite significant because it will change the character of the bank quite fundamentally. Because in the past we were, if you like, a borrowers club. The 5 members are also the ones lending. They have put capital into the bank, and they're also the borrowers at the same time. When you look at all the other banks, AIIB, Asia Development Bank, World Bank, European Bank for Reconstruction Development, they have 2 categories of members. Borrowing members, the countries where we actually do projects, and non-borrowing members. So the New Development Bank will now take on the same character as all of our peers.
When you think about the future impact of the New Development Bank, one could only imagine it's getting ever bigger because of the changes that we're experiencing right now. So many would wonder, where are the new members come from? Are they mainly coming from developing countries, or would there be more emerging economies joining in? Leslie?
I would say that this is a dynamic process. It will unfold over the next few years. For starters, the bank will have new members from all the different regions and continents in the world. Countries in Latin America, in Africa, in the Middle East, in Asia.
Interesting.
So we will have and will become more of an emerging markets bank, but also with non-borrowing members from other parts of the world.
Now, you think about the new members of the board of a New Development Bank and the new vice president that are coming in. You and the another vice president stay on, while others have been having new roles. So tell me more, how do you see this new roundup of personnel, and how are you, together with your colleagues, preparing for the next stage, which might be even more challenging?
I think you are absolutely right. We are now going into reflection mode, if you like, because the bank, this is also the end of the first 5-year strategy of the bank. One of the advantages of the institution, when we started out, we had 4 vice presidents and the president from India. But there was a neat complementarity, if you like, between the sort of skill sets and the competencies of the management team, and that has been reinforced in this current sort of reappointments of some vice presidents and also some infusion of new blood, if you like. So we are now looking at how should we capacitate the institution for the new era. For example, the new era will involve greater focus on private sector, lending to the private sector and crowding in more private sector capital. Secondly, a greater focus on sustainability and on ESG. Most of our projects, as I mentioned, will be in the ESG space. Thirdly, we will also raise more green bonds, and green finance is going to be a big focus for us. We were the first bank to issue an SDG bond here in China a few months ago, and as you will recall, in 2016, our first bond in the capital markets was also a green bond. And then fourthly, the other big priority is obviously the expansion of the bank into other territories. So those 4 are some of the big sort of new strategic priorities for us going forward.
During this process, carbon, of course, is one of the focus, as you mentioned earlier. But there are so many other issues about carbon that we do not know. For example, right now, how innovation is going to cover, even in the case of China, the 50% that we still do not know how to fulfill in terms of a carbon peak and carbon neutrality. Meanwhile, there's also not clear message about, exactly how much would that mean in terms of economic growth? How would that balance be calculated? So how do you look at the math in a way?
I would say our starting point is to tap into the power of new technology. I think that we don't know yet how innovation and technology will shape the next 10, 20, 30 years. But our fundamental belief and premise is that new technologies will enable the transition towards the net zero world. So we would like to be supporting and then scaling some of these new technologies that will revolutionize many industries. I mean, there's no question that the packaging industry is going to change fundamentally. The idea of single-use plastics will be outmoded for sure. Cars, as you know, China, Europe, they've already announced that by 2035 they will terminate the production of normal fossil fuel driven cars. So the world will be electric vehicles and hybrid. You already have 90% of the world's electric bus fleet here in China. 50% of all passenger vehicles, electric vehicles, are sold here in China. So you will see a lot of these changes enabled by technology. So we are witnessing and looking at how we can play a role to, wherever we identify such transformative technologies, to replicate it elsewhere in other parts of the world. Take the best of what South Africa's produced, reproduce it in China. Take the best of what's produced in Brazil, reproduce it in Russia, and so on, as in other member countries.
My final question. Unfortunately, we are having so much geopolitical uncertainties. That would make a heavy toll on all multilateral institutions, including the New Development Bank. How do you see the danger, the maximum danger and the maximum possibility to work around the danger as someone working for the New Development Bank from day one?
I mean, I would say that in the end, I think despite all the tensions and the sort of uncertainties, there will be, and there's always a recognition that these institutions, when they were set up, remember 1944, the world emerged from from major destruction, right? It was the end of the Second World War, millions of people lost their lives, economic infrastructure was depleted. It was multilateral institutions that built the first rail lines in Japan after the destruction. The first loan by the World Bank was also for the rail industry in France. So the reconstruction of Europe was very central then. Similarly, with the economic devastation coming out of COVID, I think the world will recognize more and more the importance of these institutions. So we look beyond the political uncertainties and the political tensions. We look towards the medium term of when we come out of that period, these institutions will become even more important.
So you're watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Coming up, amazing athleticism, fluid, effortless movements, and iron discipline, all leading up to the realization of Winter Olympic dreams, something a Chinese Olympian skater has shown on the ice, who's now training the next generation. Stay tuned.
Figure skating not only technical, you have like artistic, you have to combine like everything together, and that is a real performance.
Welcome back. This is World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. All eyes are on the Tokyo Olympics opening ceremony. Despite COVID infection concerns over the game, athletes lost no time for training. I met Chen Lu, who won the first Olympic medal in figure skating for China and rose to fame as the butterfly on the ice for her elegant and breathtaking movement on the ice. She retired 22 years ago and became a professional coach. The medal-winning legend has now become a tough mentor, patiently guiding the next generation fulfill their dreams in and out of the Olympics. Her daughter, Anastasia Petrova, inherited her athletic talent. She has taken up the mantle of figure skating, just like her mother, who's also her coach. It's amazing to see the two of you together
Oh, thank you.
on the ice rink.
Yeah, we're here every day.
How is her performance today?
Not very good. She hasn't been skating for 5 days.
5 days.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have a very strict mom,
Yeah.
I have to say. But I saw your jump, very impressive.
I jumped better before.
Yeah? You practiced how many years?
7?
Well, all kids learn figure skating start from like age 4 or 5 or 6.
So, what do you make of your students' performance today altogether?
We just practice. We haven't really worked on the programs and all that. So today it's not really their best performance.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just want to give you some information before I come here. So many people feel jealous of me because I'm going to meet Lu. She has been amazing, bringing China to the stage of figure skating. At Chen's Skating Training Center, she shared with me what it takes to be a professional athlete. I'm also thrilled by these youngsters' passion and hard work. A lot of us saw your passion on the ice, you know, with that piece, Butterfly Lovers, and also The Last Emperor, Rachmaninoff piece as well. It's amazing. People have never seen such an expressive person from China on the ice. Let's just say The Last Emperor.
Yeah, that's very unique program. Before that, not really a skater, figure skater, use Chinese music, kind of start that trend. I know that music, like a long time, I really liked it. So I come to my coach and you know, I wait for a week because I was so scared.
Is that a strategy
yeah,
or what?
I was so scared. Like she refused. Like she said no, you know. So I said I really want to use this music, and then she said okay. I just love to skate that program, like even for practice. I think it's just like that music, I love that music, and every time when I listen to it, and it just like make me so wanted to skate. Usually because our program, we have to use the whole year, and then every day you practice, like, you know, every day a few times, and then you get bored. But this music, the whole year, still, like, I love it. By the end of the year, I still love it.
The Butterfly Lovers. At the end of the performance, I still remember you were kneeling down on the,
Yeah,
on the
I was
ice
crying.
and crying.
Yeah.
But it's not nobody would say it's a performance, you know?
No, it's not.
It's really coming from within,
Yes.
one could tell.
Yes. A lot of people ask me, say, "Oh, you're so sad because
it's not
you
sad,
know you're
right?
leaving. You know you're done." I say, "No, I was just relieved." That's my childhood, dream or my goal, to go to Olympic and to get the medal. Like that's my
And
dream.
shine.
Yes, that's
And
my
shine.
dream. So that helped me go through all those difficult times. So after that, I knew, I know, no matter what, I'm done. It's just relief, all the emotions, very sad, happy, it just everything, that moment, it just come out.
That's really amazing thing because that's almost the start, as you said, of Chinese athletes trying to bring in something about China and yet not necessarily abruptly. You did it so beautifully. Did you realize that? Now you think in retrospect.
Well, I didn't really thinking about that.
At that time.
Yeah, at that time. The problem is, a lot of the athletes or individual, they didn't realize this is the full package. The detail, detail that matters.
I remember you were, for example, butterfly lovers, you were doing that little hairpins.
Yes.
And the color of your wardrobe.
Yes, and my hair has to be we can't
all the way
do
back,
a lot.
yeah.
Right, it's very tight because when we jump and spin, they're gonna come out, and if a hairpin drop on the ice, it's gonna deduct marks. So it's very tight. But you also need some it's just a little, not so too much, just a little decoration.
Right.
Yeah, and earring, that's something you can wear. It's to make the whole look. It's
More presentable.
More presentable. So I always wear earring. Either a little shiny one or butterfly lovers, and I find earring. It's a same color, that's a detail.
Our talk really goes into a girl talk
Yes.
about how to do
No,
the
but
hair.
I think
but it's so important.
It's
isn't
very
it?
important. It's very important. You can't just come out. Even the shoelace.
The leggings,
Yeah.
shoelace, the
shoelace
colors of
is,
it.
it has to be not just whatever. It has to be on your skates. Those kind of things. Or before competition, we have to polish our skates. It's just everything.
At that time, Chinese athletes did not even have access to train overseas, but you did it with your own effort. Tell me more about that.
I have to say I'm very lucky. My first
Hard to earn.
my first junior worlds competition, and I just get a medal. Just everybody shocked. Nobody know this little girl.
Yeah, who
and
is
they
Lulu?
Come here. So that time, they try to figure it out. I'm Chen Lu or Lu Chen.
Because they never see even a Chinese name ever.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So everybody get really interested. How a Chinese girl learn to skate? All those question marks, and this is it just really, this is life. It's very strange. My grow up my idol is a Peggy Fleming.
Right.
And
She's beautiful.
She's beautiful. Her coach, he's Italian, name's Carlo Fassi. So he's come to Chinese team and talk to the team leader and says he wanna sponsor me. He think I'm very talented and then I can become a big star. So he really wanna help me.
Wow.
Yeah, and from there. And he bring us, I have my teammate, actually 2 of us. We went to Italy that year, summer. We stayed there for 3 months. And also he bring a choreographer from US. come to Italy and do the new program. And then that time, I just know, oh, you know, like figure skating, not you coach to choreograph your program. They have like a professional choreographer to do your program. You know, it's just so many
Everything
things.
is new to you.
Everything is new. And I think, and then next year I went to US. It's also because I get a sponsor, Ice Castle. So that's like a very famous training center. So I get a chance to train there, like for free. You know, it just go up pretty fast, pretty quickly. And then I went to Olympic. I went to Worlds, I get a medal, and then I get it, ISU invite me for the for tour to do exhibition. You know, I get all those chance like to do all that. And it just like all the time, like you surround by all those like, you know, like professionals and the great coaches and also like, you know, the top athletes.
Right.
And you just learn so much.
But to you, I guess, it's something very different because, I mean, you are in a whole nation system earlier, right? Before that. So the coach took care of you, but you don't make your own decisions.
Yes.
And you just go with the system, right?
Yes.
Every step of the way.
Yes.
But then you were in a new environment.
Yes.
They are doing things that you never seen before.
Yes.
Not even the coach who followed you would understand, right?
Yes.
So you have to interpret everything yourself
Yes.
and then make a decision.
Yes.
Because they're expecting your decision.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, at the beginning, it's you just don't know what to do. You know, it's just like it's all you, and they're waiting for your decision. You're like, oh, really? It's like that? I thought you just tell me what to do, and then I'm doing. So it's very different. You need the time to adjust. But after a while, I guess I'm young and I learn things fast. And you watching other
Others.
people, right, what they're doing and why they're so good and why they can perform like that. I think my choreographer, like I can say it's the best of the best. And I'm so grateful, like they helped me. And I think like the performance, the artistic side, they were helping me so much to realize like what I can do. I think like Sandra Bezic, she's kind of like my mentor. Actually, when we work together, like it's very unusual. Like,
Tell me more about it.
After we choose music, she's not like just come out and then gave me all those like movement, like you do this. No, she just play this music. She said, you skate.
You feel it.
Yeah, you skate. And I skate, I just, whatever I feel like, and then she's like, oh, I like this, I like that, I like that. So she pick it up and then to kind of put together. So all the movements, and it's from me. So I feel comfortable.
The free flow, you know.
Yes. And I can really, you know, it's just very natural.
Now it's a very different generation of Chinese athletes. But one could argue, not yet people have made that impact as you did decades ago. What do you make of, you know, this younger generation on their way up, particularly with the Beijing Winter Games coming over?
Now, like the new generation, because the whole technical level is very, very high.
Very different now.
Yeah, very different, very high. So of course we can't compare to like 20 years ago. But still, like, you know, like figure skating, not only technical, you have like artistic, you know, you have to combine like everything together, and that is a real performance. Chinese athletes always, the weakness is their artistic side. I think it's because our culture and also how those kids been educated, to do all that. Because when I was young age, I was trained in U.S., so I see the different side of it. And I find my way to really express myself. And that's kind of like the key to really open your heart.
So true.
Yeah. So it's like now, like when I'm coaching my daughter or like my student, so I always tell them, like, don't be shy. Just do whatever you feel like. Your posture or your position might be not like perfect, but you don't have to be perfect. That's more like your emotions and your feelings is full, and that make you unique. And for that, like the technical like thing, like okay, here is the perfect heights and like all that we can train, but your feelings, that's like really from your heart.
I know you are starting a career that's really winning a lot of aspiration and admiration, because you're trying to create this beautiful base for Chinese Winter Games. Tell me more about how make that transition, from an athlete, from a coach that's working within systems, to a businesswoman, which you have to make sure not only you're okay, but everybody else is okay, and move things forward.
I have to find a balance. Of course, the transition is not easy just like that. But I took long time. Like I was moved back from U.S. I was in CRC, China Resources. I worked in that company for 10 years. Right. So I learned a lot of the business side of the things, yes. And also when I was in U.S., because the system is very different, so that helped me to know, like how to run the ice rinks, and it's just the business side is, the system. Right. Yeah. So I think it's just everything together. And then also that's something I wanted to do. I want to learn, I want to do. So you just pay more attention, on those things. Right. Yeah. And so after the 10 years, and then I leave the company, I start my own. I have to say, well, why I'm doing that is because passion. I still have that passion in me, like I love my sport, and I always want to, my experience can help the young skaters, more and more, and help them to become what they want to become. Right. Yeah, want a real skater. Yeah, so that's kind of my dream or my passion.
And the enthusiasm for winter sports is really up in China, right?
Well, I have to say much better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, much better. But still not enough. Like for us to keep going, continue our business, it's really difficult. Mm-hmm. It's not very easy. You see, like run a rink, it's very different. Right. It's very technical, how to keep the ice, like the quality, like what do we want, and also we have to check the numbers. We have all that budget, and we have to. You have to balance all that. We're not like the government owns. We have to make it survive first, and then we can help others. So that's kind of like you can't give everything, but still you want to bring out the best quality. So that you just have to
That's
make
a daily struggle, isn't it?
Yes.
Particularly for a professionalist.
Yes.
Or should I say perfectionist
Yes.
like you.
Yes. Let's say like now, we want to have like a less people on the ice because for training it will be much better quality. But for the business side, we want to have a more, so you have more income. So that's kind of like a competition, you know, like you fight. So we just have to find a balance.
Well, that's my conversation with Chen Lu, China's first ever figure skating world champion. She's, of course, also a Winter Olympian for China. And that's all we have for today. If you'd like to see more, search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei. On behalf of the team, thanks for watching.